When thinking remains with what is within, something different happens. It becomes ordered, not through force, not through control, but through alignment. This is the 7-minute daily focus, day 96 of 365, to focus on the world within from the world without. Today's focus, the law of thinking, order of thinking. Pause for a moment. Order is not something you impose on thinking. Order is something thinking follows when it remains aligned with what is within. Because thinking, when left to react to what is physically seen, becomes disordered. It moves from one condition to another, from one reaction to another, and from one appearance to another. And in that movement, continuity is broken. But when thinking remains with what is within, something different happens. It becomes ordered, not through force, not through control, but through alignment. Thought is the seed within the mind. Thinking develops it, but order allows thinking to follow the natural sequence of unfolding. Pause. Thought is within, effect is without, and thinking stands between. Order belongs to thinking. It is the ability to remain in sequence. Recognition, then thinking, then continuity, then unfolding, then physical expression. When thinking stays aligned, this order is preserved, but when thinking reacts, the order is disturbed. It begins to look for physical expression before unfolding. It begins to question the seed before continuity, and it begins to follow appearance instead of origin. And this is disorder. Thinking determines outcome, but order determines the integrity of that outcome. Active thinking follows order. It remains with the sequence, and it does not rush ahead. Passive thinking breaks order. It reacts to what is physically seen, and it looks for results before continuity is established. So disorder is not failure. Disorder is simply thinking out of sequence. Recognition must remain within, because order begins at recognition. If recognition is clear, thinking follows correctly. And if recognition shifts, thinking begins to move out of sequence. So order is not something you correct later. Order is established at the beginning. This is why awareness is essential. To notice when thinking begins to rush, to notice when it looks for results, and to notice when it questions what is within because what is physically seen has not changed, and to return to order, return to recognition, return to continuity, and return to remaining, because order is restored through alignment. If order is broken, interruption follows. Thinking becomes unstable. Continuity weakens. Unfolding is delayed. But when order is maintained, something becomes clear. You are no longer concerned with when something will appear. You remain with the process, and remaining with the process allows it to complete. Unfolding physical expression. This is where steadfastness becomes power. Remain aligned with what is within. Do not rush ahead to what is physically seen, because what is physically seen is always the final stage, and what is within is always the beginning. Order is the refusal to reverse this sequence. Thinking requires position, and order maintains that position. To remain in order is to remain with what is within until it unfolds, not to rush, not to force, and not to react, but to remain. You are not trying to create order. You are allowing order by remaining aligned. So today, observe. Observe when thinking begins to rush ahead. Observe when it seeks results before continuity. And return to the sequence. Return to what is within and return to order. Because when order is maintained, the process completes. And what completes unfolds, and what unfolds must physically express. Consider this more deeply. Disorder in thinking rarely appears as something obvious. It often appears as urgency, as the feeling that something must happen now, as the impulse to move ahead of the sequence. But urgency is not order. Urgency belongs to reaction. Urgency belongs to what is physically seen. And urgency is the attempt to force the final stage before the process has completed. So when you feel urgency, observe it. Not to suppress it, not to fight it, but to recognize what it is, a movement out of sequence, because true order is not hurried. Order is steady, order is patient, and order follows its own sequence without being rushed by appearance. Recognition, thinking, continuity, unfolding, and physical expression. This sequence does not change. It cannot be rearranged. But thinking can attempt to rearrange it. It can try to bring physical expression forward. It can try to question the seed before it has been sustained. And it can try to measure progress by what is physically seen. And in doing so, it creates disorder. So the discipline here is simple. Do not move ahead of the sequence. Do not look for the final stage before the process is complete. And do not measure unfolding by appearance. Remain with order. Remain with the stage you are in. If you have recognized, remain with recognition. If you are thinking, remain with thinking. And if you are sustaining, remain with continuity. And allow each stage to complete its work, because each stage has a purpose. Recognition establishes the seed. Thinking develops it. Continuity sustains it. Unfolding brings it into form. Physical expression reflects it. If any stage is rushed or bypassed, instability appears. But when each stage is allowed, the process becomes smooth, natural, unforced, certain. So order is not something you add. Order is something you respect. It is the willingness to remain with the process as it unfolds, without interference, without rushing, without reacting to what is physically seen. And this requires awareness, to notice when thinking begins to compare, to notice when it begins to measure, and to notice when it begins to question because the final stage has not yet appeared. And to return to order, return to sequence, and return to what is within, because what is within is always the beginning, and the beginning determines everything that follows. So if you remain with the beginning, the middle will unfold correctly. And if the middle unfolds correctly, the end must appear. This is certainty, not based on what is seen, but based on the integrity of the process. And when you understand this, something shifts. You are no longer concerned with timing. You are no longer concerned with comparison. And you are no longer concerned with what others see. You are concerned with order, with remaining aligned, with sustaining the sequence, and with allowing the process to complete. And in doing so, you remove resistance. Because resistance often comes from trying to move ahead, trying to force the final stage, trying to change what is physically seen before it is ready. But when you remain in order, there is no resistance. There is only process. And process, when uninterrupted, completes itself. So throughout your day, observe this carefully. Notice when thinking becomes impatient. Notice when it seeks evidence too early. And notice when it begins to doubt, because the final stage has not yet appeared. And in those moments, return to the beginning, return to what is within, return to order, because each return restores the sequence, each restoration strengthens continuity, each continuity allows unfolding, and what is allowed continues, and what continues unfolds, and what unfolds must physically express. Now, the affirmation for day 96. Pause for a moment. My thinking remains in order. I follow the sequence within. I do not rush to what is physically seen. I remain aligned. I remain steady, and I remain continuous. And because I remain, unfolding continues. And what unfolds must physically express and remember by design, by focus.